welcome to another Whisper Talk book review for the 17th book I read for the year. Let me show you what it was. Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker by Jennifer Chiaverini. I have no idea if I pronounced her last name correctly, but I apologize if I didn't. And I received this book from a lovely TikTok friend. She sent it to me out of the blue. It wasn't even on my Amazon wish list, but it's been on my TBR for so long. So it was amazing that she saw this book and thought of me without knowing it was something I've been wanting to read. I remember when this book came out and I was talking about it with my boss at the time, and she was a big reader as well. So when this book came out, she immediately read it, and I was so jealous. And it's only taken me 10 years to read it, but better late than never. Also, I didn't realize this author is who wrote the Elm Quilt series books, and I read 3 of them last year in like a compilation, and I didn't care for them, and I had been wanting to read them forever. So when I put 2 and 2 together, that they were the same author, I was going, interesting. I'm very intrigued to read this even more now, wondering if it's gonna feel like those Elm Quilt Creek series books. I'm happy to report that it doesn't. It in no way has that same vibe, which I was very thankful for. This book is about Elizabeth Keckley, and she ended up being Mrs. Lincoln's modeste dressmaker. She helped her dress, but in the end she became an extremely close friend and confidant. And Elizabeth was born a slave, and she purchased her freedom and her son's freedom, and she went on to become a very successful seamstress, highly sought after, highly successful. She had apprentices, she had people working for her. That's how heavy her workload was while she lived in Washington. We first meet her when she is the seamstress of Jefferson Davis's wife, and they go on to be on the Confederate side of the Civil War. They move away, but not before recommending her to Mrs. Lincoln. And that is really where we pick up in this book, is when she becomes Mary Todd Lincoln's seamstress and confidant, and we see her in that role through the Civil War, through Lincoln's presidency and assassination, and thereafter. She starts charity work for newly freed slaves to help them get on their feet and learn skills and to be able to survive in their new world. And we see her battle her son's death in the war and all of the hardships that she witnesses because of the Civil War, and then shortly thereafter because of the president's assassination. And I will say this, I learned a lot. I didn't know anything about her, unfortunately. In all of the schooling and the lessons, she's left out of it. And, you know, in school we're just taught that Mary Todd Lincoln went crazy, and we don't really learn much about her. Maybe now, but not when I was a student. I am very grateful for the education I received while reading this book, because like I said, a lot in here that you just don't learn about. But it does get very dry very early on for a very long time. I will say that I'm appreciative and I recognize the work that the author put in, detailing so much preciseness of the history of the Civil War and what happened. That being said, it felt out of place. I sometimes forgot if I was reading a textbook about the Civil War, or if I was reading about Elizabeth Keckley and what her life was like during this time. There was what felt like pages and pages about who advanced where and who won what, and loss of life, and who charged here and who surrendered there. It was a bit much, and I appreciate history. I love history. But sometimes you're not looking for that dryness in the book you're reading. You know what I mean? So that knocked it down some pegs for me. And because of that, it didn't stir me to want to read more quickly. I was surprised at how long this took me to finish, because it just wasn't grabbing me like I thought it would. To get my fix of learning about her, I took a pause reading this and just spent some time reading about her online, because I wasn't getting what I was hoping for while reading the book, because a lot of time was just being spent on explaining the war and the intricacies of who was winning and who was losing, which is very pertinent, but I don't think should have taken as much time as it did in the book itself. There are so many frustrating moments in this book, and in a good way, those frustrating moments you want when you're reading. When you see how much Elizabeth sacrifices herself for Mary Todd Lincoln in both time and finances, and how much is never rewarded. You have the surface level of gratitude, but you just don't feel that Mary Todd Lincoln fully understand all that was being sacrificed for her. I'm super glad I read this book. Even though it didn't meet my expectations fully, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have learned what I did learn and what it made me go seek out and learn more about. And I see that it's the first in a trilogy of some sort, which I didn't know. So I'll probably add those books to my wish list eventually and keep an eye out for. But I'm not running to the library or to the bookstore to get them. I need a little break. I need a little palate cleanser before I revisit this author and this series she's created. I do have a lot of quotes, so I can't remember the last time I had that many quotes. So up next, you're going to see them. And until next time, happy reading.